So now, without further ado, please allow me to introduce our first speaker, Janet Rickford, who is Vice President, Retail and Merchandising Data Products and Services from Loblaw Companies Limited. Janet joined Loblaw in 2019. She leads a team delivering data products, merchandising solutions, and store applications that enable smarter decisions for their merchants and a seamless shopping experience for their customers, helping Canadians live life well. Prior to joining Loblaw, Janet had a career in retail transformation with Accenture, founded a construction company, and has taught business courses through Confederation College. A strong advocate for diversity and inclusion, Janet has championed women's initiatives throughout her career. At Loblaw, she is executive sponsor for the Women in Tech pillar, where she works to attract, develop, and retain women in technology, using data-driven insights to identify opportunities for greater gender diversity and supporting women in building confidence and breaking down barriers in the workplace. Please join me in welcoming Janet.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome. It's really great to see all of you. I don't know how to get off of this slide. I'm going to keep clicking. Eventually, it's going to work, folks. There we go. Okay. So first off, welcome. Thank you to all the friendly Loblaw people. If you're not in person and you're watching the stage, you can't see that there's a table of Loblaw folks all with their phones up. So thank you for all the warmth there. Really appreciate it. So you're probably wondering, why is there some person from a grocery store here? Okay, it's a good question. You often think about big technology companies. You often think about academia, but I hope that in the next couple of minutes, I'm going to be able to explain to you a little bit about how every company, especially a company like ours, is taking advantage of AI. Okay, so first I want to tell you a little bit about me. So Janet Rickford, my pronouns are she and her, and I've had a pretty fun career. You heard a little bit there. I started out of school with Accenture, big consulting company, did a lot of retail transformation. What does that mean? Well, I use technology to help them change their business processes, be more effective. I started out of Queen's University. I did see a few Queen's backpacks in the crowd earlier. I graduated from Queen's with a business degree. And the very first thing when I joined Accenture is they taught me to code in C. Okay, so I'm dating myself just a little bit, because client server was all this new technology rage, okay? One of the things that you're gonna realize in your career, you see that big winding path, technology changes, okay? So I hope that you get out of today that what you're doing right now and the things we're talking to you on stage, it'll probably be different in a few years. So keep your curiosity, keep your interest in learning. Know that at the heart of all of it, technology is there to solve problems, okay? Might be a bit different, the kinds of problems you're gonna solve, but that's really at the heart of it. So I had this good career with Accenture, helped retailers around the world to adapt, and then I said, I wanna try something new, because a lot of the work I was doing, it took a long time to see the results. You would do something with an organization and it might take a year or two to really have it sink in and be meaningful. And I said, I'm gonna try something different. So I said, construction. It's a little bit of a difference, I know. But if any of you have worked in technology, what are some of the key things? It is scope, it is timeline, it is budget. What's construction? Exactly those same three things. So I took something that I knew and applied it to a very different industry. Had a lot of fun with that. I also took some of my spare time and did some teaching online with Confederation College. Really enjoyed that because I got to teach skills to a lot of women who were very remote. Had a lot of fun with it. But after a few years, I decided it was time to sell the business that I had created, and I wanted to come back into a corporate setting. And I knew that I didn't want to go back into consulting. One of the things that was different from consulting to what I do now is I have to live with the things that I put in. So if I make a big technology initiative at my company, I get to see all the results for years and years. I get to see how that technology is really being used by our colleagues, by our customers, and what benefits it's bringing. So that's one of the different things for working in a company like mine, is that you're not only going to find great solutions, but you're going to see how they get implemented. Okay, so that's a little bit about my career path. Let's talk about the organization I work with. You probably know a little bit about Loblaw. You've been in our stores. We're one of Canada's top employers. So next to the government, a very large employer. About 1.1% of Canada's workforce works for our organization. We're around 220,000 colleagues. We are 2,800 stores. So most of Canada is within 10 minutes of one of our stores. So we really are coast to coast. I can't say the third coast. We don't quite have stores up that far north. Maybe we will someday. We're Canada's largest retailer of mass cosmetics. So not just groceries, not just prescriptions, also beauty, apparel. We have a very wide range of services. We even have a bank. Some of you may have a PC MasterCard that you take advantage of to earn points. Very large organization, about $61 billion in revenue. So, for that organization, why would you go work there? Why would you go work at a grocery store versus really digging into research and mastering your skills in AI? One word: data. We have a ton of it. If you want to work with a really large data set, there is nothing better than a retailer, because we do about 1 billion transactions a year. If you think about every shopping cart that's going out through a cash register, every person who's picking up a script at a Shoppers Drug Mart, all of that is creating more data. We also have such a robust loyalty program that we get very rich data. So we get to see what products do people buy together. How often do they buy them? When do they stop buying them? When do they start buying them? So there's a really rich amount of data that we have that is really fun to play with. Okay? We have some really great technology platforms, really interesting tools at your fingertips. So that's one of the things when you get to an organization, is the size and scale of the data that you get to work with. Sometimes for the folks who've joined us after very wonderful careers in academics, it's one of the things they comment on is, wow, there's just so much data. Sometimes too much. Sometimes that can be part of it. Another key thing that is different about being in an organization like ours versus being in academics, some of the projects that you've worked on as you've gone through your degrees, is what's the definition of better? Okay, that may sound funny, but there isn't only one definition. But let me give you an example. We had a few years ago that we decided we were going to work on a forecast, trying to decide how many products does a store need. So if you get in your mind a picture of a shelf. So you're walking down your grocery aisle, you have all those products in the shelf. We need to make sure that the right products show up at that store to fill the holes on that shelf. We don't want it to be out of stock. If you go into a store and you're expecting to buy your favorite product, you want it to be there. Okay? So we had a forecast, and it said that this store needed 8 of something. Okay? We are shipping them 8 products. We spent a lot of time, a lot of investment, because we were going to make a better forecast. And the better forecast said, no. That store only needs 7. So that is a better model. It is more accurate. We are more confident in the results of that forecast. But the product ships in a box of 8. So, are we going to, in the DC, take one of those boxes out of the case? No, that's not really going to work for our business. If you want to be getting efficiencies of being that better forecast, you would have to be shipping an awful lot of that product before the better model actually returns any kind of benefit. Now, we do eat a lot of cookies. Decadent chocolate cookie is pretty popular. So maybe that is a great forecast, but we have to keep in mind in our world that we have to be addressing the real business problem and we have to be focused on the value. So that better model isn't really better for us, okay? We have to work within some constraints, okay? And our constraints are, it has to be good for the company, the colleague, and the customer. Okay? If any one of those three things isn't completely balanced, it's not going to work for us. Okay? So in that case, we really have to tie into that business benefit. So, what are some examples where we can work within those constraints? Again, I'd like you to picture your shopping experience. You're in a grocery store, you're in the aisle, you're walking along, and you see that there are pasta and sauce, okay? We took all those things, that we've learned about doing better forecasts, and we said, what if we can use that forecast instead? Let's think of a forecast that's not going to be as constrained and look at sales, okay? So can we predict sales instead of predicting how many products to ship? And we can use all that rich sales data that we have, those billion transactions that we get a year, and see how people buy pasta and sauce. They're products that sit beside each other in the store. And one of the things that we found is people were not buying as much sauce as pasta. That's kind of funny, because often you're putting sauce on your pasta. How come? Well, we started looking at it of how much space in the store was given to pasta versus sauce. People were not finding as many options as they would like. We have tons of options for pasta. And if anyone in the room has children, small children, they will tell you that every shape is a totally different meal. At least mine will. If I serve a long pasta versus a fun curly shape, totally different menu. Okay? But I can even mix that up even more by changing what sauces I'm going to put on that. So we did some analysis and found that we could work within the constraints of the retailer. So the customer wants more sauce options. That's what's good for them. We would like to sell more sauce. If that's the things that they want, we'd like to really make sure it ends up in their cart. And the third constraint, the colleague, okay? We don't want to make it really complicated for people to move things around in the store. So, has anybody been to a store when it's gone through a renovation and you can't find things, they've moved it to another aisle? It's kind of frustrating, isn't it? Okay? And it takes a lot of work for the store to do that. So we said, let's put a constraint of, you can only work within your current space. So you can't start moving things all over the place in the store, and you can't ask the colleagues to change what kind of shelves are there. You don't want major construction. Just work with what you have. Okay, so that third part of the stool, let's make it great for the colleague. And we found there was a big change we could make, big impact, not a big change, big impact, very little change, if we just shifted and did a little less space for the pasta and a little more space for the sauce. Okay, so example, when you're in an organization, sometimes better has to work within the constraints that you have. And sometimes that can make the problem more fun to solve because you don't have this wide open opportunity. You have to be really creative about how you're going to apply those constraints. So that's one of the great things coming to work for an organization like ours. Challenging use cases. Okay, we're a retailer, we're a bank, we're a cosmetic company, apparel, prescriptions. There's lots of opportunity for the use cases that we have. So I thought I'd highlight a few of them. If you think about logistics, I said it's maybe not that easy to do that new forecast because I don't want to take one box out of the case. But what if I could arrange the products on the pallet that's going to store so that they come off in the order that I want to put them on the shelf? That'd be kind of cool. That would be much easier for the colleague. It would be good for the company as well because it would take longer to stock the shelves. So lots of really interesting use cases in logistics. In merchandising, where I spend a lot of my time and a lot of the folks in the room spend their time, what if I could figure out what products people want me to feature? What are the products that they actually want to see on the shelves? So if I can use my information that I have to offer better products and services to my customer. In the store, tons of AI use cases. If you think about those colleagues that are in our stores, they're busy. They want to be helping customers. They don't want to have to be running to a back room to look something up or ask a question. What if we can use AI to put all that information in their hands, just in a handheld, that they can ask questions and get real information back, okay? That they can have it all presented in a way that's quick and easy for them. ESG, this one's really fun for me. It was mentioned in my, my intro that I'm a sponsor for our Women in Tech initiative, and appreciate all the women in tech that I see in here. It's really wonderful. We can also, so we can use our data to figure out what is going to attract and retain women in our company. What are the modeling that we could do to say, if we pulled this lever, would it make a difference? Okay. We also do a lot in food waste. I'm so excited about this part of things, that we have used modeling to say, are we about to have a freezer have a problem in one of our stores? So again, picture you're in the aisle, that freezer aisle. Have you ever walked down and seen that there's kind of a bit of frost on products? Yeah, I see a head nod. So what can happen, as soon as that frost builds up, we're gonna have to take all that product. In a lot of cases, it's not product that we're gonna be able to sell anymore. We're gonna have to do a big defrost of that freezer and start over. What if we could predict the problem ahead of time? So let's figure that problem out, or fix it before it actually starts to ice up. So it's so fun. We've done a lot of really big modeling for this, had some help with another organization, another great Canadian organization, Avado, out of Montreal, and we paired together and came up with some ideas, and we had one of our first use case successes where we started to see these anomalies in the data and said to somebody at a certain store, can you just go walk by? Can you go check this? So let's just take a look at it before it's a problem. And sure enough, a bag of frozen French fries had opened up and the fries were clogging the mechanisms that make that freezer work. Okay, we saw that all from data. So now we can have somebody fix that freezer before the product is not in a good shape for our customers. We don't have that experience if you walk down the aisle and it's all iced up, you can't see what's in there, and we didn't have to do a very expensive repair. So really exciting stuff that we can do with ESG. We can even fix toilets, okay? I don't know, toilets, grocery, what would you, well, we get, because we have a lot of stores, we have a lot of facilities there that we have to maintain. And we've done some really neat Gen AI stuff and where we can have our invoices scanned for toilet repairs and find out, what are we actually spending on our toilets? How often do we need to service them? Some really exciting, really fun stuff there. So just because you're a grocer and you work in food, you get to do things all across the store to make it work. So I've told you a little bit about some of the things we do. I mentioned at the beginning that I'd had a bit of a career shift. And I really hope that one of the things that you think of as you're here in this room is you should be open to tons of options in your own career. It's always really great just to start, okay? So be open to all the opportunities that come to you. Maybe it won't be your first dream job, but you never know where it's going to take you. I can admit that at the time that I joined my first organization, Accenture, at the time I didn't think that was my first choice. I had so much fun at the time I was there. I was there for about 16 years. I got to work all around the world. I haven't worked in Antarctica, I haven't worked in Australia, but otherwise I've covered the continents. So that was a lot of fun, helping retailers around the globe make improvements. I would never have expected that I would get into construction. I would never have expected that I would, at the third career turn, come and work for such a large organization and be part of the technology work that I get to do. The technology itself is going to change too. So I mentioned when I started my career, it was client-server. That was a big turning point for technology. It was a different way. We went through big ERP era where organizations were putting in big monolith solutions. Now, when you think about what AI can do, we have no idea how the jobs are going to change over time. It's going to be so exciting to see how this technology is going to unlock things. So I really encourage you to be open to that. I hope you will think of organizations like a grocer, retailer, that aren't typical technology roles, because I assure you, technology is at the heart of everything. Okay? It's all about how we can enable, like I said, better for the customer, better for the colleague, better for the company. And that's anywhere that you're going to go work. AI is going to be able to do those three things. Okay, we're going to switch gears. We're going to be able to open up to some questions. I know that we have a couple of microphones here on the floor. We also have, for those of you who are virtual, you can put questions into the chat, and they'll be open for someone in the room to ask on your behalf. So I thank you, and I look forward to answering some of your questions. I unfortunately can't see the microphone, so I think our helpers will go back and forth. Okay.
Anyone who'd like to ask a question can come line up behind the two mics in front. We'll get started with our first question. Go ahead.
Hi, Janet. Thank you for the presentation. It was wonderful. I was wondering, would it be possible for you to share some insights? So, for example, in retail space, for not too long now, but we have driven consumer insights, mostly like behavioral insights, in terms of how people make purchases and what influences it. Do you see like a confluence on behavioral patterns of consumers and AI, specifically when we talk about big retailers like Loblaws? Because we have done that like in a Sephora, where we monitor, consumer behavior and purchase patterns of consumers. On basis that, then we conceptualize the campaigns using AI. Do you also witness that happening at a larger retail space now?
Yes, it's an excellent question. So if you think about the visual I gave you for our loyalty program, we get a lot of insights for customers, and we want to make the shopping experience, if we can, personal. So if you're someone who is part of our loyalty program, has downloaded the app, then you're going to get to see offers. Okay? You're going to see things that are tailored, hopefully tailored to you. And let's think of this use case of, I'm a consumer and I don't like a certain thing. I never buy it. I'm never going to buy it. Stop showing me offers for that thing. Okay? So that may be that if you have a certain, if you are vegetarian, please don't show me animal proteins. Okay? If you've seen in my buying habits that I've never purchased a category of product, maybe you could tease me a couple of times to see if it's something I've just never tried, but you should learn from the purchases that I do and show things that are really personal to me. And so that's one of the ways that a retailer can do that, beyond just the cosmetics, but into the food, into all the services that we offer.
So much. Thanks.
Hi, Janet.
Hi.
I just noticed some of the postings on Loblaws Limited, the entire application process is done through a chatbot. Is there a project that you were involved with? And maybe you could talk to maybe how that got started and how it's going now.
I have to be honest, it's not one that I personally was involved in, but we are trying to give information in the best way that we can to our candidates, okay? I will say one of the ones that's really interesting that's coming, we're gonna have virtual AI coaches for our colleagues. So if you think about career coaching, in the past, that's something that's been a little bit expensive sometimes and hard to deliver because I have to have a person match with a particular person. Their schedules have to match. No, I can't meet at 10 o'clock on Tuesday. So when it comes to bringing colleagues into our company and developing them when they're there, we're taking advantage of all the opportunities that we can.
Thank you.
Hi.
Hi, Janet. Thank you for your presentation. You spoke about forecasting, and I have a question in regards to that. I was doing a little bit of research, and I found that Loblaw uses a machine learning algorithm called Blue Yonder to forecast demand in terms of avoiding stock wastage using variables like sales history and holiday seasons and stuff like that. And I think anyone that works with data knows that the output of your algorithm is almost always dependent on the quality of your input. So my question is, what variable would you say was the hardest to quantify in terms of feeding it into the algorithm to predict demand?
You're very right that I said we have a lot of data. I'm going to say we actually have pretty good quality of data too, because we invested time several years ago to really get our data lake set up and to make sure that it had, it didn't have gaps in it. We do, when we bring that sales in, we spend time making sure that it's right every night, okay? So that's something that we've put those checks and balances in, into our sales audit process. In terms of what's the hardest, I think it's that you're getting all the data elements to be right and to be quality at the same time. So if you're only focused on cleaning up your sales data, but you don't have that, you know, you're not clean on what your store network is, then it's not going to be able to match together. Okay, so that's been one of our key things, is we have to understand all parts of the data at the same time, to have it clean at the same time to be able to use it. I will say when it comes to the forecast, the tools that you've mentioned, we've had them in place for quite a while, so those, you know, they get better over time too.
Thank you so much.
Oh, sorry, we're going this way. Hi.
Hey, Janet. Really excited to hear you and learn from our experience. So I have experience in dealing with the LDIA data, your Loblaw's data. It is high quality. I have a question to ask you, is that we have so many new products in the market coming in, and the older brands like Pepsi or Coca-Cola. So if a new brand wants to come in Loblaw's, like, are we thinking of any AI strategy to help those new brands get in? Because there's a lot of barrier to entry for every new innovation. So what Loblaw's does about that?
Okay, that's a great question. I'm going to kind of take it in two different ways. The first is, sometimes it's not just about AI. So when it comes to bringing new suppliers into our environment, we also have what we call a small supplier program that we purposely go out and help smaller organizations, especially if they're Canadian, we love that, to help get space on the shelves. But it goes back to that space problem that I said. That's where we would use the data science of where do we have gaps in our assortment compared to the rest of the market. So if we see Nielsen data that says, wow, this product or this type of product is doing well in the market, we could be analyzing our own to say, do we have enough coverage of that type of product? Okay. So I think it's a little bit of both. It's a little bit about finding what our needs are, but also having programs to help suppliers get in and get that space.
Hi, Janet. Thank you so much for sharing all the information about Loblaw's. My name is Vrishti, and I wanted to learn more about what you see as the trends coming up in the retail industry utilizing AI, and what are some newer things that would get implemented in the process? And then just a part of it, like how are more traditional stores taking those changes when you recommend using AI practices?
Yeah, so there's a lot in that question. Let me see if I take all of it. So in terms of trends, I gotta say, there's so much opportunity, okay? If you think about, I'm gonna go business metrics for just a second, but if you think about consumer packaged goods and selling those goods, the average net profit for a consumer goods company is about 10 to 20%, okay? The average for the retailer is 1 to 3. So we're really tight. It's hard to make money. We make money because we sell a lot of it, okay? But anything that we can do to get the cost part out is really appealing, and especially to our colleagues. They don't want to do annoying things. So that's where, for a lot of the retail, we have so much opportunity in the things that they do every day. Repetitive items, if I always have to go look at that report. I see one of my colleagues in the audience. We used to have this report that would print out, very long, that says, here are the products in your store that are about to expire. Okay? Go now take this 15-page document, walk around the store, find the product, pull it off the shelf, put it somewhere, you know, not a great process. Now, howbeit it comes to their hand, in there, right there, that says, here are the products that are about to expire. And let me sort it by the area that you're gonna walk the store. And let me give you the opportunity to scan and find out if there's another product around it that has a date coming up, okay? Like, think of all that improvement that's there. In terms of what it could be, I have no idea. I'm excited. I'll go off topic for a second and say, okay, I'm sure everybody here in the audience plays with Gen AI, plays with different ideas. And so this weekend, I'm having some girlfriends over, somebody's birthday, we're gonna have a dinner, and I have a bunch of glassware that I never use. Does anybody else have that? You have fancy stuff you never get to use, okay? So I took a picture of that cupboard, and I uploaded it and said, tell me some drink ideas to be able to use these glasses. It came back. It came back and said, it essentially planogrammed that cupboard for me, just like you would in a retailer. It said, in the second slot over from the right on the top shelf, use that glass for this mint cocktail or mint iced tea, whatever. There were different options. It did that in seconds. So if I think about what the capabilities are going to be for a retailer, I'm just so excited, because not only did it figure out what was in that picture, it could create some spatial definitions for the things that were in the picture. It could then give me ideas of how to use the thing in the picture, because I asked it the next question, could you give me a menu to go with those drinks? And it did. So think of that. If we put that power into customers' hands, those PC Optimum people that we know their preferences, we know what they like to shop, and we have it so that they can have the picture of the product and suddenly have dinner figured out. Oh, it's exciting. It's exciting. There's so much that we could be doing. So I think that's what some of the trend is going to be, is that mixing of changing your shopping experience, trying to give people more insight, more ideas of how to use the products that they're getting. So thanks for the question.
Thank you.
Hello, Janet.
Hi.
My name is Peter Saleme from Rotman UFT. First of all, my first question is, how are you doing?
Fantastic.
Perfect, perfect. So let's just say, as I'm talking to you right now, some TikTok influencer gets a sausage roll, dips it in peanut butter, and it's such a trend. And you have stores all around in Canada. So how do you know how much you have to supply so that you can as much as you can, provide for that trend and not lose so much, especially because you're dealing with stores all around the country.
Yeah, it's funny. There is one retailer in the U.S. that I go and do store tours and see what different folks are doing, and they actually have one end cap, that's that display at the end of an aisle, that they dedicate to TikTok trends. So it's, you're not that far-fetched. It goes back to that forecast part where we have a number of different models that start to show change, that start to say, oh my goodness, the whole industry is running out of X, okay? So it's not only us, it's other people that we're starting to see that. We reforecast every single night, okay? We don't do it all day, every day, but we do it every night. So if there was some big difference, we would definitely start to see and give that lift to the forecast to be able to say stores are going to need more. So I'm going to go back to one that was real in COVID. How many of you might not remember, it was all about toilet paper at the beginning, okay? Which had nothing to do with the symptoms, but everyone thought they needed a lot of toilet paper. And I can remember about 3 days before we had the shutdown, I was on a stage in Quebec City talking to a number of our store managers and leaders in that area. And we were telling them, we know you don't see it yet, but you need toilet paper. And they were always like, what? What are you talking about? I don't need toilet paper. Like, trust us. We're sending you toilet paper. Just, you're gonna need it. And they're all were saying, no, no. Because in Quebec, they were just a few days behind the toilet paper run of everyone wanting it. And sure enough, it was because our models were starting to pick that up in other parts of the country, and we could fix the problem in advance in that part.
Thank you.
Hi, Janet. My name is Sahiti, and I'm from Schulich School of Business. One thought that got into my mind when we were talking about the cookies of when the model predicted for 7 cookies, but we had 8, is what is that optimum point, or which machine learning model, which accuracy or precision that would be reaching for it to implement in the real world business?
I think it is different by different use cases, and it all depends on those constraints. So, there may be certain things where we want to be unbelievably accurate, okay? But there's others where good enough is important because we need to move on to the next stage, which is how you're going to implement it. So I don't think there is a one answer, but it is very much that sometimes we have to go with good enough because it's not affecting somebody's safety, it's not affecting a shelf life of a product or whatever it might be. It's not impacting our colleagues in a negative way, and we just say, oh, that's good enough, let's go. Let's move on to the next business problem.
This will be our last.
Okay, so we've got one more question. So I think we're going to this side. Oh, this side.
Thank you for the presentation. My name is Damali.
Hi.
You mentioned you guys work with tons of data. In terms of security and ethics and governance, what do you guys have in place?
A lot. Because we're a big organization, of course, we're interesting for people who like to do bad things with data. Okay? So we are very, very careful for it. I'm not going to publicly say any of it because then that also signals what we have and don't have and all those tidbits. But I would say that security is part of everything that we do, from the types of partners that we're going to work with in technology through to how we implement things, how we have things set up in our stores. It's through the whole life cycle of retail, not just about the data.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so thank you very much.
Wow. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Janet.